Meanwhile, what the Texans will do after the season is hire a general manager and then hire a coach. That's the right way to do it. Don't do it backward. Don't hire the coach and then hire the GM. Until then, Executive VP of Football Operations Jack Easterby, despite a fairly thin football resume, and I'm being kind, despite a virtually non-existent football resume, as a football proposition.
Right.
That's it. Character coach, that's not running a football organization. Chaplain, obviously, that's not running a football organization. There's that item on his resume from 2004 where it used to say he was an assistant to the director of football operations in Jacksonville, and then it was changed to say he helped with the football operations department. It was an internship while he was in college, right? So that's it. That's the football credential that allows him to be the interim general manager of the Houston Texans. The interim. I was stunned by that. I knew he was going to emerge from this thing with more power and influence, but I never would have dreamed that they'd make a guy with a thinner football resume than you, Chris, from the standpoint of front office and personnel and coaching.
Right.
The interim general manager of the team. I mean, you at least worked in football for the Patriots for a year and a half. That's a hell of a lot more experience than Jack Easterby's gotten as an actual football guy.
Yeah.
Right? Character coach, that's not it. That's not teaching you how to run the salary cap. That's not teaching you how to properly do trades. That's not teaching you how to evaluate. There's a lot of work being done. The next year's draft, next year's free agency, there's a lot of stuff that the GM's in charge of.
Right.
I'm stunned by that. I'd have rather seen Romeo Crennel, the interim GM. I mean, if it was good enough for the coach the last time, Bill O'Brien to be the GM as well, why not make the interim coach the interim GM? So anyway, I have a prediction.
I don't get that either, though, Mike. I'm with you. That makes no sense.
But here's the
Go
thing.
ahead.
By the time they're hiring a general manager,
Yeah.
Jack Easterby will have had 12 weeks of experience as interim GM. And I have a prediction. I don't want to say that it's definitely going to happen. I'm not going to be surprised if Cal McNair decides to make Jack Easterby the GM by the time it's all said.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be surprised.
Maybe.
At all.
I won't be surprised if they only win a handful of games over the next few years if that happens either. Then that's to me.
But he'll be a consensus builder. You don't have to have any experience in scouting. You don't have to have any experience in salary cap management. You don't have to have any experience in coaching or evaluating players from other teams or balancing out proper trades. You don't have to have any of that. You can just be a consensus builder who threads the needle for all the other people who report to you. That has been sold successfully in the past, and mark my words.
That's not what it's going to get it done. I mean, Ozzie Newsome and John Schneider and other great GMs around Nick Caserio with New England and whoever else I'm missing out there, the Brandon Beans, the Veaches, our guy in Indianapolis, who I'm blanking at, Chris Ballard. Right. I mean, they're not overseers. They're like in the nooks and crannies of evaluating players and scheme and what this does. And wait, this player's good, but how good is he? Is the scheme helping him? All of those things. These are real football guys. So if you're going to have a guy that's not a real football guy making real football decisions, I would say to the McNair family, then don't expect to win a lot of football games. That's what I would say. It's okay to have Jack Easterby, to like what you're saying, be an overseer, whatever, president of football operations or whatever title they want to give him. But when you started getting into a guy who, yes, has a limited background of evaluating players, if any background at all, and doing that, that's a little scary. That's where I don't understand, why didn't they just, one of the higher-up scouts or something like that, just anoint him the GM and have Easterby watch over that department a little bit, not actually make him the GM.
Yeah, and you know what? As I sit here and think about it, to the extent that he has successfully strategized and implemented and calculated his way to the job that he now has as Executive VP of Football Operations, we talked earlier in the week, he's got the perfect setup where he's not accountable for what goes on the field. He can take credit when things go well, as he does in his online bio, but you run for cover when things don't go well. And if you're the GM, you can't do that. If you're the Executive VP of Football Operations, you got an easier path to that because ultimately it's others who are responsible for the on-field product, not you. So, but that's all the more reason not to be the interim GM. Don't even put your hand anywhere close to the fire. That's what makes it even more surprising that he would aspire to that. And, of course, now he can say on his resume, moving forward, he was the general manager of the Houston Texans for 12 weeks in 2020. And I'm being somewhat facetious and somewhat not facetious. But, the bottom line is he's going to emerge from this episode with more power. And the people who get hired ultimately are going to be answering to him in one way or another. It's almost like he's a surrogate owner or that buffer, that liaison between GM, coach, and owner. And he's not going to just voluntarily give that up.
Well, definitely
you don't implement a plan effectively and successfully to accumulate power in any organization and then just hand it over.
No.
It's stupid.
No.
You don't do that. So that's where that's heading. All right. You got anything else before? I got one last thing I want to say about the Texans.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I'm going to be interested to see how much they've empowered him and how it affects the next search. And when we get there, I mean, if you're a big-time GM or a guy that you think like, whoa, we like this guy, they might not like how this is set up. And that might turn coach candidates and GM candidates to where, I wonder how much power he does have. Because the next GM might be like, hey, if you want me as this GM, I don't know, but Jack Easterby needs to be over in that room or that building. He doesn't run football or whatever. And I just wonder, what that'll do, conflicts of interest, and where that'll bring this Texan football team.
It limits the universe of candidates. We talked about that earlier in the week.
Mm-hmm.
If Jack Easterby has significant power, you are not going to be pursuing general manager and coaching candidates who would say, either in the interview or first day on the job, get this guy out of my face.
Yeah.
I don't want this guy around here. Check out this guy's resume. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Let him go do what it is that he does, right? Character coach and making players feel better and making family members feel better and talking a very strong game in that regard. And that's fine. There's a role for someone like that. But it's not running the football operation. It's not having oversight of the GM and the coach. And the bottom line is what Cal McNair wants to do is what's going to happen. But you may not get the best GM and the best coach if they have to ultimately answer to someone that from a football standpoint they're not going to respect. Period.
Yeah.
It's truth.
Right.
Jack, if you're watching, sorry, it's the truth, and that's the reality. And Texans fans, you should be concerned that you're not going to get the best possible GM and head coach because of someone who has accumulated power quickly, who is not going to want to surrender that power.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.